I'm thinking about a little monarch came through right when I pressed record. Thinking about the nature of being an artist because you form an intimate relationship with the things around you, with your environment. You know, if you're looking at something and you're drawing it, your eyes are required to trace every single little detail of your subject in order to create an accuracy in your rendering of it. And my grandmother, my mom's mom, she said something to me. I spoke to her around the time of her birthday, which was at the end of May, on the phone. And I told her that I was coming to Italy to do an artist residency. And she has been a watercolor painter her whole life. And she said, we're lucky to be artists because we see things on an intimate level. And I think a lot of people do not wash their perception over every little detail. I say wash because it is like water. Like if you pour water over this concrete thing, this stone bench, then the water, there's no surface area. It will fit into every little crevice and nook. And I think it's beautiful to behold life and spaces and people in the same manner, not in a nosy way against other people, but to see everything and notice everything, you know, the silent things, the small things, because only then can we make a fair and just assessment of whatever it is, a situation. Of course, as individuals who have our own perceptions that have been shaped by the world and our lives, one could argue that no one ever really makes a fair or just assessment because everything is subjective in that nature. But we owe it to ourselves and our other humans to try to be fair and just. Science in the Akashic field, an integral theory of everything. This book is pretty incredible. So the Akashic field, or the Akashic records, are the A field is what it's referred to in this book. It's a collective understanding of past, present, future. Everything recorded in this library of information. Thoughts, actions, potentials, past, future, present, all accessible to those who connect with it. And there are many different cultures that speak of this. I'd like to read from it for a moment. Okay. So the word ether, Alice Bailey wrote, is a generic term covering the ocean of energies which are all interrelated and which constitute that one synthetic energy body of our planet. The etheric or energy body, therefore, of every human being is an integral part of the etheric body of the planet itself. This ties into what I call my twisties, which are the diagrammatic representation of interconnectedness. Because what it is saying is that all of the cells, all of the organs, all of the functions within the body create your twist. And that, with other humans, creates, a town or a family. That whole body creates the frequency of the planet. This is how we matter, basically. I like to think that you can move in silence and what you do still has great weight because you can never eject yourself from that connectedness of being held and tied into. the etheric body of the planet. Gustav Fechner, the pragmatic founder of experimental methods in psychology, expressed the same idea in surprisingly definite terms. When one of us dies, he wrote, after recovering from an illness, it is as if an eye of the world were closed, for all perceptive contributions from that particular quarter cease. But the memories and conceptual relations that have spun themselves round the perceptions of that person remain in the larger earth life as distinct as ever, and form new relations and grow to develop throughout all the future in the same way in which our own distinct objects of thought, once stored in memory, form new relations and develop throughout our whole finite life. This also, 555 as I look up on the clock, calls into question the idea of knowing yourself, knowing your ancestors, the beauty of having somebody's memory live on. But more than that, I personally hold a belief that lots of history has been concealed, discarded, right? Think of like the libraries that have burned and the relics or the secrets held in, the Vatican or the pyramids of Egypt. These things are not hidden from us because they exist in a collective, right? A field that we can tap into, which is why I believe on Earth today, a lot of people feel a dissonance between the way the world is run, the way the world works, and the things that are happening. And another truth, it's like I get chills on the left side of my body, which is the feminine side. And I believe that's because they're intensifying. There is, blah, 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 an awakening occurring within the human collective. And I believe that feminine energy is at the forefront of that because feminine, the moon, the intuition. Not to say that men aren't having that too, because there is anima, animus, both energies within us all. We basically don't need to break into the Vatican to read the secret texts, because we can inherit it from sponging up the energy around us. Nothing in this world is evanescent. All things continue to exist through the traces they leave in the cosmic information fields. We humans, too, create an Akashic record of our lifetime experiences, a record that can be retrieved by others. Our individual experience is not limited to ourselves and to our individual lifetime. It can be re-experienced and thus relived at any time and at any place, today and at all times in the future. This is the exact thought that I am expressing when I talk about Akashic integration, or being able to see myself in a different reality as a different being. Those would be considered my past lives, but there is a simultaneity that exists outside of time and space to those sorts of experiences. And because of the way that we experience the passage of time in this reality, they can only be reconciled as past, especially because, the 1800s, a lot of people will be like, well, that's in the past. We're in the 20,000s or whatever, 2000s. But as far as the perception of it and what this passage is speaking of, the recollection of it, the access to it, there's a simultaneity to that. And the reason why each individual will have access to the ones that pertain to them and their soul memory. However, other people can tap into that energy and recall that information on behalf of others. So readers or healers or energy workers who do those types of Akashic records readings for other people. Reincarnation. Understanding that it is the A field, Akashic field, the information field of the cosmos that confers immortality on us and not an individual immortal soul, gives us a different perspective on reincarnation. This perspective is fully consistent with the evidence we have of reincarnation. which consists of impressions and ideas recounted by people about sights, people, and events they have not and could not have encountered in their present lifetime. It is then assumed that they encountered them in previous lifetimes. This goes back to what I was saying the other day, I believe 4 days ago, about having sensations that don't seem to pertain to your current life. These could be things coming up. They're the two wheels, the two different gears, or the point that you're at on your journey is aligning with something that occurred in a different life. What you're going through is relevant to a past that you're not used to interfacing with in your consciousness, but it comes up to be released, to be realized. These past life experiences have an element of truth in them, but that does not guarantee that such experiences come truly from a past life. Past life stories crop up routinely in the experience of psychotherapists who practice regression analysis. They place their patients in a slightly altered state. Hypnosis is not needed since breathing exercise, rapid eye movements, or simple suggestion is usually sufficient, and take them back from their current experiences to the experiences of their past. They can often move their patients back to early childhood, infancy, and physical birth. Experiences that seem to be those of gestation in the womb surface as well. Interestingly, and at first quite unexpectedly, psychotherapists have found that they can take their patients back further than the womb and physical birth. After an interval of apparent darkness and stillness, other experiences appear. They are of other places and other times. Yet the patients not only recount them as the experience of a novel they have read or a film they have seen, but actually relive them as well. As Stanislav Grof's records testify, they become the person they experience, even to the inflection of the voice, the language, which may be one the patient has never known in his or her present lifetime, and if the experience is of infancy, the involuntary muscle reflexes that characterize infants. Ian Stevenson of the University of South Carolina investigated the past life experiences recounted by children. Children have a more natural ability to recount certain things because they also aren't tainted by the idea that this is impossible. During more than 3 decades, Stevenson interviewed thousands of children in both the West and the East. He found that from the age of 2 to 3, when they begin to verbalize their impressions, until the age of 5 or 6, many children report identification with people they have not seen, heard of, or encountered in their young lives. Often these reports can be verified as the experience of a person who had lived previously and whose death matches impressions reported by the child. Sometimes the child carries a birthmark that is associated with the death of the person with whom she or he identifies, such as an indentation or discoloration on the part of the body where a fatal bullet entered, or malformations on the hand or foot the deceased had lost or had wounded. The experiences reported by children and by grown-ups in altered states of consciousness actually occur, and they show that we can access the experiences of other people, whether they stand before us or are far away, and whether they are living today or have lived sometime in the past. But when we re-experience other people's experiences, we do not reincarnate them, for the images and ideas that surface in our consciousness stem not from single individuals whose soul has survived their death and is now reincarnated in us. Rather, the ideas, images, and impressions entering our consciousness have their source in the vacuum. The information carried in the vacuum's A field, Akashic field, is active and effective. Its range is vast. It embraces other humans as well as forms of life and all things in the universe. In integrating with it, it is not our individual body and our individual soul, but our individual experience that achieves immortality. We do not disappear from the world without a trace. All that we experience becomes part of the collective memory bank of humankind to be read out again and again. We can live on in the brain and consciousness of people today and in all future generations. The poetry of cosmic vision. I'm just going to read this part that is italicized. It's probably going to take about 10 minutes. Imagine, if you will, a lightless, soundless, formless plenum. It is filled both with the primeval consciousness that is the womb of all mind and spirit in the cosmos, and with the fluctuating energies out of which all things come to exist in space and time. There is nothing in this cosmic fullness, yet there is everything in potential. Everything that can and will ever happen is here, in formless, soundless, lightless, quiescent turbulence. I'm gonna have to look up some words. I don't know what plenum means or quiescent. After an infinity of cosmic eons, a sudden explosion, untold magnitudes greater than any turbulence ever witnessed or even imagined by human beings, penetrates the formless turbulence. A shaft of light rises from its epicenter. The plenum is no longer quiescent. It is rent by a super cosmic force emerging from its hitherto soundless and lightless depth. It liberates gigantic forces, transforming the plenum from virtual formlessness into dynamic formative process. The surface foams with instantly appearing and disappearing ripples of energy, forming and annihilating in a cosmic dance of unimaginable speed and momentum. Then the initial demented rhythm becomes more sedate, the foam more orderly. The ripples radiate outwards from the epicenter, bathed in pure light of infinite intensity. As the foam expands, it becomes grainier. Swirls and vortexes appear, incipient, if as yet evanescent, wave patterns modulating the surface of the evolving plenum. With the passing of further cosmic eons, the ripples of patterned energy consolidate into lasting forms and structures. They are not separate from each other, for they are micro patterns structuring into larger patterns within a common wave field. They are part of the underlying and now no longer formless plenum that erupted and created them. Each ripple is a micro world in itself, pulsating with the liberated energies of the plenum and reflecting in its micro totality the macro totality from which it emerged. Holographic universe theory. We are mirrors to one another. The micro patterns trace their careers in the expanding space of the initial explosion and take on structure and complexity. They modulate the turbulent plenum. It is more and more structured at the surface as the ripples cohere into complex wave structures, and it is more and more modulated below as the evolving structures create minute vortices that integrate into information-carrying holograms. The informed hollow field below and the micro patterns on the surface evolve together. That can also speak to the dodecahedronic prism of the self and how, as above, so below, as within, so without. What you project, think about, and how you vibrate energetically is going to play a role in how you witness and see the world, and therefore what happens and is catalyzed around you. Their growing architecture enriches the hollow field, and the enriched hollow field informs the evolving microstructures. This is why I like talking about how it's actually incredibly empowering to think about creating your reality, because it just takes a tiny little fraction of a moment to key into that idea to improve your life. Surface and depth co-evolve, taking on complexity and coherence. The more complex the structures that emerge, the more independent they appear of the depth below. Yet the ripples and waves at the surface are not separate, but part of the medium from which they arise. They are like solitons, the curiously object-like waves that emerge in a turbulent medium, such as people are of a collective. Waves of the ocean are all part of the same water, but they are individual, distinct waves. and they rise and they fall into the ocean, they return. Ciao. The evolving wave patterns have not just external relations. The ripples and waves cohere in elaborate structures, subtly interconnected with each other. At a crucial stage of their evolution, they become self-sustaining, reproducing themselves and replenishing spent energies from the embedding energy fields. The evolving wave patterns have not just external relations, they also have an inner reflection, a feel of each other and of the depth. At first, an unarticulated basic sensation, this inner reflection gains in articulation as the self-maintaining waves acquire structure and complexity. They develop higher and higher grades of inner reflection, articulating their basic feel of the world as a representation of individual things and processes. They map the world that envelops them and themselves in that world. After another cosmic eon, the energies liberated by the initial explosion dissipate across the surface of the plenum. Some megastructures use up the free energies available to them and then explode, strewing their micro ripples into space where they consolidate into new megastructures. Others implode, and in a final flash, re-enter the plenum from which they emerged. The ripples that evolve on the surface of smaller megastructures break down, incapable of maintaining themselves in an environment of fading energy. As the universe ages, all complex structures and articulated reflections disappear. I need to extend my feet. But although the surface loses modulation, the memory of the depth is not affected. The holograms created by the ripples remain untouched. They conserve the trace of the surface's evanescent structures, together with their feels and reflections. And now another shaft of light rends the plenum, breaking its quiescent turbulence and reviving it with another formative burst. A new universe is born. This time the ripples and structures that form on the surface do not appear randomly at the mercy of chance. They derive from a plenum informed with the hollow trace of prior ripples and waves. Ram Dass says we are all just walking each other home, right? The intelligent universe learning from itself. My feet are really asleep. Oh. Pardon me. Why is it such an intolerable feeling to have my feet be asleep? The cosmic drama repeats itself time after time. Infinity, right? We're all just dancing to a mysterious tune intoned in the distance by an invisible piper, said Albert Einstein. Further shafts of light radiate outward from the epicenter. Another multitude of ripples moves outward to dance, to cohere, to feel, and to reflect. The new universe ends as the ripples and the structures it brought into being vanish at the surface. But the holograms created by them in the depth inform the next universe, born as further explosions rend the plenum. Time after time, the cosmic drama repeats, but it does not repeat in the same way. It builds on its own past, on the memory of the ripples and waves that appeared and then disappeared in prior universes. In universe after universe, the plenum brings forth micro ripples and mega wave structures. In each universe, the ripples and waves vanish, but their memory lives on. In the next universe, new and more elaborate structures appear with more articulated reflections of the world around them. In the course of innumerable universes, the pulsating metaverse realizes all that the primeval plenum held in potential. The plenum is no longer formless. Its surface is of unimaginable complexity, which I can say, my twisties, right? It's like a fractal. On the outside, it just looks like one, traffic cone shape, but you get close. This goes back to what I started this video by saying, right? Become intimately aware of the details of your own existence and the world around you. Because the more you zoom in, the more detail there will be indefinitely. In the next universe, new and more elaborate structures appear with more articulated reflections of the world around them. Life force energy is just trying to know itself in as many different ways as it can. And right now in history, we are coming into a period for humanity of recalled connectivity and integration, wisdom of the ancients, recollection, cycles, right? This was not lost on certain great civilizations, but the way that we remember and recall them is sometimes lacking. What I was talking about altered history. In the course of innumerable universes, the pulsating metaverse realizes, oh, I already said this. The cosmic proto-consciousness that endowed the primeval plenum with its universe creative potentials becomes a fully articulated cosmic consciousness. It becomes, and thenceforth eternally is, the self-realized mind of God. Powerful stuff. I'm not sure if I've expressed this before, but I take issue with people that say that they, we are God, you are God, you are the creator. Because when you get on a roller coaster, you're on the ride. We are humans. We're not God. We're aspects of a puzzle comprised of this energy that flows through and fuels all things. But, Christians they think that anybody who believes in a New Age spiritual thing is, well, I don't want to necessarily get into these types of generalizations because I can't be certain how all of the Christians feel, right? But I think that they believe that people have been infiltrated by the devil who believe in New Age spiritual things, because the devil's very present on the world stage, literally, right now. And there is darkness in the world. And I think that people think that it's a cop-out or spiritual bypassing to attempt to remain neutral and see things from a scientific point of view. And this has to do with, the Bible and sinning and redemption. I personally believe in principles over, I believe in a nuanced experience that doesn't have to locate itself in a religion, but is guided by principles that are non-negotiable, like respect, kindness, and compassion, and like forward evolution, a commitment to one's growth. The things that you can do to live your very best life and, amplify the experiences of the people around you too, which I believe will be a natural byproduct of living your very best life. I think, when people say like, well, I am, you can embody goddess energy or God energy, but it's something, to connect with, to inspire. Like if I go into a meditation to ask for divine inspiration, or the ideas that come to me for artwork and paintings and sketches, the whole notion of my twisties concept, that's kind of like my religion and belief system, because that's what the energy that flows to me and through me has shown me. And these repeated experiences, it's kind of mind-blowing. I'll also say that I just totally opened up to a random, couple pages of that book, and they were incredibly resonant for what I'm thinking about right now, because talking about, collapsing and reforming in this holographic nature that learns from itself. I mean, I see these torrents of these twisty shapes that I do, it could be like this one, the onion, but also, and that's as above, so below, but also just like fields, right? Like the ocean, these plains, these fields, this turbulent wave force. I'm actually being called to it. It's calling me into the studio. I'm making a piece right now. It wants my attention, and maybe I'll wait to post this video until I am done with that so that I can use that image as the cover for the video. Yes, do that. It's the piece is about kind of the inherent brokenness but balance and perfection of life and energy, just constantly expressing itself. It can be chaotic and perfect at the same time. Right? It can be violent and I'm talking about these waveforms collapsing and energy creating universes. And think about the power of astronomical, the implosion of a black hole, like just the amount of energy and power, there's no word for how massive those occurrences are. And that is like violent energy, implosion, explosion. Orderly chaos, though. And this also brings to mind an idea. I've shared this in another video, but it was before I came to Italy. I don't remember which video. But even when I was a child, I was a very deep thinker. And something that I remember doing was looking at puddles or droplets, just small little water puddles or just the presence of water, and noticing how when it has a reflection in it, which kind of all water does to some degree, it will kind of reflect something, whether or not it's still or muddied. But if there was a little pool of water here and it was reflecting this clear blue sky and this greenery and this gazebo-like framework above me, and it wouldn't cheat any detail of that reflection. All of what is here would be reflected there. And I used to stare at little puddles and check. It's really funny to have done that as a kid, like look back and forth and try to pick up, you're like, yep, it got that part right. Like seeing that perfection. And the beauty of that, to me, it was always mind-boggling, because I was like, it doesn't even have to try to get it right. It just mirrors it perfectly. How incredible is that? It's like a really good artist who doesn't have to try. It rendered perfectly what is opposite to it, like an artist would if you were sitting trying to make a perfect painting, make a perfect technical rendering of what you're looking at. Oh, and to continue that metaphor or analogy, the clearest reflection, right? If the water's choppy, not like puddles have their own atmospheres where they get weather and stuff, but if there's wind, the wind picks up as I say that, then you won't be able to see the reflection in its completeness and in its perfection. And that speaks to a calm mind. In order to see things with accuracy for what they truly are, a sense of stillness is required. Today's a nice day. I'm just filled with like a deep blue peace that's just vibrating out from my core. And I just feel like met on every level. I'm nourished, and I'm sunned, and I'm slept, and I'm stimulated. One of the greatest battles of my life has been harnessing the abundance of information and energy that can come to me, and not letting that tip me into an ungrounded state that borders on mania. Remaining in the world, remaining present in the world while seeing into other ones. And I'm sure that's a challenge that's shared by many people who are, whatever all the terms are, spiritual or light worker or starseed. I mean, we can even go talk about mental health challenges as well, and certain things that are seen as disabilities but are actually just different expressions of energy. And with that, I will go to my peace and continue working. Good day.